Thank you for coming out this morning. Um, Unfortunately, we have to meet in this way, but I think it pays great homage to what happened 22 years ago when we almost lost nearly 3,000 people in New York City. Um, I had the pleasure of visiting the memorial site last year or this year. If you haven't done that, I would suggest that you go there or you read up on it. To be able to go there and see where the buildings actually were placed and to see the names of the individuals that actually lost their life, public safety officials, people like yourself and I working just a regular day for that to happen. Thank you. That, it shows the lives that were taken that day for no reason. I think 22 years is a very long time, but as you think about it, or you think about where you were that day it happened, it doesn't seem like that long ago. Where I was, and this is my first time speaking publicly about it, that I was on the 405 freeway heading to work. Had just kind of graduated from college, didn't really know much, didn't really understand what was happening that day. But to see 22 years later how it's changed our world, our region, our city. With that being said, once again, thank you for coming out. I'd like to do some quick introductions. We have our fire department in the back there. Thank you for coming out. Public safety at its pinnacle. We have our Hawthorne Police Department. We have commissioners, former council members. We have our great staff of Hawthorne, our Orange Shirt, Public Works Department, HR, Finance, Housing, Community Services, our clerk's office, and cable TV. If I missed anyone, I do apologize. With that being said, I'd like to get started with our event. And with that being said, I would like to introduce Pastor Jefferson for our invocation. And I didn't mention, we have our council members here. We have Mayor Vargas, Mayor Pro Tem Reyes English, Councilmember Montero, Councilmember Manning.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to come and share in this moment. I ask now that we bow our heads in prayer. God of our past, God of our present, God of our future, we come to this place on this day in remembrance of the lives that have been lost. We come to this place to say thank you for the lives that have been saved. We come to you for your comfort and your peace. We come in hope, knowing that we can find refuge in the times of distress and sorrow. We come even though we're surrounded by the horrors and the tragedies of our day, yet we are still in the presence of the best that is in each of us. Yet we come remembering the lives lost in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. We come to this place to ask you to make your presence known to us. We come as empty pitchers before a full fountain, ready to be filled with your grace, your peace, and your mercy. We come as citizens. We come as police and fire personnel. We come as citizens and government and city employees. We come to this place because you've called us to come to remember the hurt and the harm of the past, but yet to rejoice in the healing and the hope of today and tomorrow. And as we gather in this place, we are mindful of the sacrifice of men and women who are willing to give their lives so that we may have freedom and liberty to live in this land of opportunity. We come to say thank you to those who are willing to lay down their lives for the few, the forgotten, the friend, and the family. As we gather in this place today as community, we come to commit ourselves to be mindful of the gifts that you have given each of us. And as we gather, we are mindful of the hope that replaces tragedy with triumph. As we gather, we stand firm on a foundation that once was shaken. But yet, as we gather in this place today, we come to say thank you. Thank you for the men and the women who are willing to demonstrate the greatest love of all, and that is laying down their lives for a friend. And as we gather, we come to commit ourselves to you and also to each other as we ask you to continue to keep watch over us, to strengthen us when we're weak, to guide us along the path of righteousness. And when we walk through the valleys of the shadows of a death, remind us that you are there to comfort us. O God of peace, we ask that you allow us to continue to walk in your spirit and in your truth, in your love and in your compassion, for the peace for our brothers and sisters, and now in the name of him who never sleeps or slumbers, in his name who never closes his eye or take a nap, in his name who is always guiding and protecting. And we pray, and all the people said, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Jefferson. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Hawthorne Police Honor Guard.
If willing and able, please stand. Uniform personnel, you'll salute on my command. Non-uniform personnel, place your right hand over your heart. Uniform personnel, present arms. Order, arms. Please be seated.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our Mayor, Mayor Vargas, to say a few words. Thank you, Mayor Vargas.
Yeah, I hope you guys are all doing well. I had to make accommodations where I work at. I work at a county jail teaching, so I just made sure somebody substituted my class. I didn't want to miss this because it's so important to remember. Even though the further we get away from the actual date, it just, the symbolism of it all is just, it hits home. Especially today, I came to work out in the gym and I put my iPod in. The first thing that was on my YouTube list was a recap of what Channel 4 in New York was experiencing. They had like a talk show host thing going on, and man, it just like hit home again. And it reminded me where I was on that day, getting ready, not having even woken up. You know, I got a call from somebody, hey, take a look at the TV. They're attacking us. It was very clear. There was no like ifs and or buts as to what was going on, that somebody targeted us because they don't know us. They don't understand what it means to be freedom, because in their own countries they're having challenges with the way they deal with societal norms. And that tells me that what we have to do is not just be isolationists as a country. We have to engage other countries so they get to know who we are and what we represent and why we are the way we are. And I think by engaging and dialoguing, they will understand and see where we're coming from and not be so resentful and envious. So one of the things that I want to remind everybody here is that what happened on September 11th wasn't something that was far removed on the other side of the country. It just didn't happen over there. The New Yorkers, oh, poor New Yorkers. Sorry for what happened. And you know, we can cry a little bit and feel a little bit. At least two of those planes were headed to Los Angeles, guys. Two of those planes that had passengers that lived here in our area. I just want to remind you guys that there is a deeper connection. At least one of those passengers was one of my high school classmates. I was working at Raytheon, and there was a few employees from Raytheon coming from Boston to Los Angeles, and he was on the plane that they took down in Pennsylvania that was going to hit the White House. So I think if we really think about it, it's deeper. It's a deeper connection that we have to what happened on that day. So, we just have to defend our liberties. We have to be conscious of what's going on, honor our first responders, our law enforcement, our fire personnel, not only over there, but those that are keeping their eyes open to keep us safe over here. But not to make us uneasy, but just make sure that we just are careful as to how we proceed in the future. And we honor you guys, the first responders, for protecting us. We honor the different diverse communities here within our country. Just want to make sure that everybody just engages in dialogues. And that's really what I was thinking today in the morning before I came here. So definitely want to hear what my colleagues say. I think we've talked about these things in the past. As an elected official, how do we respond? It's just being prepared. That's all it is. Okay, guys? So honor all those who's passed away and keep them in our prayers. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, Grace English, would you like to say a few words?
Good morning. I just want to reflect on the proudness, how proud I am, but more importantly, how far we've come. We've learned a lot since 9/11. We have a better sense of how we move freely in our nation, in our state, in our city. I'm proud of our Hawthorne Police Department. Thank you, by the way, for facilitating today's memorial. Thank you to our LA County Fire, all of our first responders, all of those that assist in any way to assure we have a better and safer community. I also have a proudness when I reflect on my own family. My nephew is a pilot on American Airlines, and he's stationed in Boise, Idaho, Air National Guard, and he's a fighter jet pilot. And the stories that he tells me is not one of fear, but one of understanding, one of encouragement, and one of knowing the sacrifices each and every day we all have to protect our nation. More importantly, our first responders and those in public safety. I just want to acknowledge how we here in the city of Hawthorne continue to remember, reflect, and engage in any way possible to better understand, but more importantly to be able to mourn. And although it's been many years now, it's still something that's close to those that were very much impacted on that day, especially the families that were lost, those that were part of that great history today. And I just want to know that our city here in Hawthorne is doing everything possible, way beyond my years, way beyond my time here or any other elected official here, that we continue to honor those, but more importantly, protect the city of Hawthorne, assure that we have enough police force, assure that we have the first responders here, ensure that we have emergency preparedness, assure that we're ready at any given time, because unfortunately 9/11 changed the trajectory of how we move and how we live today. And so with that, I just want to thank everyone here for participating. Thank you to all of those that have contributed, and thank you each and every day for how you, in your own family, talk about emergency preparedness and talk about keeping your family safe. But don't live in fear. Let's just live in knowledge and know that today is never promised, but we need to do better for the future and for those behind us. Thank you.
Councilmember Montero.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I want to say first thank you for all of you for coming here today as we remember 9/11, right? Actually, Mr. Varga just reminded me something. Like we lost in California, we lost 78 individuals on that terrific day. Now I'm going to give you a statistic. According to the news, 343 firefighters and first responders have died on that day. And the same number, 341, have died since after 9/11. So it's still happening to some family almost every day. So today, we mark the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center, on Pentagon, on the Flight 93 in Pennsylvania. It's crucial that we uphold our commitment to always remember and pay tribute to those we lost. We must educate both current and the future generation about the significance of never forget 9/11. And we have to provide ongoing support to all the families that we lost that day, the first responders, the essential workers who sacrificed so much on that solemn day. So we must educate our young individual that service is important. Public service is important. First responder is the key for our safety. So let's honor all of those, the courage men and women on the first responding service, under our military, who continue to defend our freedom and our liberty for us to have peace in this great nation of ours. So again, thank you for being here and have a fantastic blessed day. Thank you.
Councilmember Manning.
Good morning. When I think about 9/11, my heart just is still very, very painful to think about. I remember seeing, one after the other go down. I think about the families that were affected. I think about just how our country was affected. And even though it's been 22 years, my heart still hurts. Thank you all so much for being here today. I really want to say thank you so much to our first responders, the many people that have lost their lives. I had an opportunity to go to New York, to the grounds, and see and feel what took place in New York. And when I tell you it's a surreal feeling to be there and to know that there were so many bodies still buried. The tragedy that happened, so painful to think about. I am fortunate that live in a country that love the world. And I am so happy that our first responders love so much. I mean, you think about some of the people that those first responders that continue to keep on pushing, knowing that they could lose their lives, and they sacrifice. And every single day you guys sacrifice for us, for the betterment of our country. I appreciate you. The city of Hawthorne appreciate you. Thank you so much. This means a lot. Thank you.
Would our elected clerk or treasurer like to say any words?
Thank everyone for coming out. I really want to pull together what you all said, because the mayor had some very powerful things that he said about diversity and about accepting one another. I think that our city is so diverse, and we are a wonderful microcosm of a much bigger picture. And I think that's the message that we need to spread and we need to instill in our youth here. I love what Angie said about the pride that we have here in the city. I'm very proud to be part of a very diverse culture here. And also what Katrina said about our first responders. You guys, the sacrifice that you guys make is just, I mean, we don't even think about it that much because we see you guys, you're out doing your thing, but every day they do risk their lives. And the firefighters and the first responders that lost their lives there, they came to work just like all of us did on a regular day. With that being said, I thank you all so much for coming out. I really do appreciate and respect everything that you all do for our guys in blue, which my ex-husband was a police officer for almost 30 years before he passed away. And also to our firefighters and all of our first responders. Everyone here, we're all first responders. If anything happens in the city, we're all responsible for one another. And so I thank you all again for coming out, and thank you for allowing me a few words.
Our elected treasurer, Marie Poindexter.
Good morning, everyone. It's unfortunate that we all have to come out on a day like today, but I am thankful to see you all here and see you all present. 9/11, we will never forget that day, and unfortunately it has generational impact on us all. It will always continue to affect us all. It will affect many generations to come. And most of us don't even realize the first responders in New York or the people who were affected directly in New York still have medical issues ongoing. There's just not there's not enough help. They are still experiencing the things that happened on 9/11 to this day, and it won't stop. I have visited the site, and when you step onto that site, the emotion, the heaviness, you feel it as soon as you step onto it, and you can recall the visuals if you were at home or seeing it live on TV. It stunted me that day because I remember when the first plane hit I was sitting there stuck in my chair at home, and I couldn't believe what was unfolding. So it still impacts me. And so when I visited the memorial about a month ago, as a matter of fact, I felt it all over again. Every memory came back to me in that moment, in that time. So 9/11 unfortunately will continue to affect us all for many generations, but as a nation we heal and we have mourned, and we probably will continue to mourn. So it's really beautiful to have this and to be involved and to see you all come out, and the fact that we can all come together and still remember and mourn and realize its impact. It's very powerful. And so I thank you all for coming out. Please, disaster preparedness, I can't tell you enough. Please, it is a thing, it is real. So take your time with your family. Go over disaster preparedness because it is real. We are in California, so we have our own disaster preparedness, but it is a thing, it is real. So take the time, talk about it with your family and your children, because it is something that we need to be fully aware of in this moment. So thank you all. I thank you for the words. I appreciate it. And have a good day, everyone.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our Veterans Commission Chair, Faye Johnson. I don't see you. Oh, there you go. Hey, Faye, you can come up and say a few words. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to share this moment with my community. I would like to thank City Council members, our mayor, our city employees, and our distinguished guests for all the things that you do for our community. We gather here today to never forget. We will never be able to forget where we were, what we were doing, or how that day changed our lives. We gather to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice on that day and days that followed. While many people found themselves at the mercy of the events of 9/11, others chose to intervene and do all they could to prevent the loss of life that day. Those are our first responders and our heroes. On that day, many ran into the burning buildings without a second thought. Many lives were saved because of the first responders' heroic efforts that cost a lot of them their own lives. We honor all the lives lost because of that day. However, what most people may not be familiar with is what is now known as the boat lift of 9/11. After road, tunnel, and railway closures throughout New York, over 800 American mariners and over 150 American maritime vessels, to include passenger ferries, tugboats, merchant ships, private vessels, and New York City Fire and Police Department boats, came together to transport over 500,000 stranded survivors from Lower Manhattan across the harbor to safety in only 9 hours. The boat lift of 9/11 was the largest water evacuation in history. People, strangers, coming together to help their fellow man. I believe this is how we truly honor the memory of those lost as a result of 9/11. Each of us must own that responsibility by supporting our community and honoring our community's first responders and military members who work so hard to keep us safe and be there for us in the time of need. Case in point, I received a call and text from Sergeant Saldana, who also serves on the Veterans Affairs Commission. Since I work for the VA, I figured he was just calling to get information about services we offer at the VA. No big deal. But I was wrong. His voice was urgent and determined, as though he was on a mission. He asked that since I work for the VA, was there any way I could assist him in getting information about a veteran that they were about to take into custody for brandishing a firearm. This veteran seemed desperate because he was not able to get the help he needed from the VA or others. This Sergeant Saldana was desperately seeking for a way to de-escalate the situation and ensure that that veteran and the officers were safe. But because of my job, it does not give me access to that type of information, and I had to think about what I could do to help. In the meantime, Sergeant Saldana had to go, but had Sergeant Cisneros call back. Fortunately, my daughter, Amanda, works on a suicide prevention team with the VA and was able to help the sergeant get the phone numbers he needed to be able to provide the assistance that they needed while they successfully took the veteran into custody without incident. They were also able to help the veteran get the services that he needed through the VA. Now, what other department, police department, do you know who would go that far to make sure that an apprehension of a person is done in a safe and respectful manner? I don't know of any. This is how we honor our heroes of 9/11, by working together to help our fellow man just as they did that day. I want to express my gratitude and appreciation for our police officers, our firemen who serve our community, and we honor those of 9/11 by honoring them today. In the spirit of honor, I would like to close by asking all of us to recognize our police, fire, and military men and women with a round of applause. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to introduce LA County Fire Battalion Chief Martin Mayer. Please come up.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. Thank you for being here. As we remember those who lost their life on 9/11, we also remember where we were that day and realize we're still here today now. We realize life is short, and we've been blessed by God to carry on with a purpose to serve others, just as those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. 9/11 was a hard reset for our country, which made us all come together with a common purpose: to love God, our country, and serve one another. Thinking about sacrifice, and this may seem cliche, but it reminds me of the movie Saving Private Ryan. If you've seen it, if you haven't, then it's spoiler alert. In short, Private Ryan was one of 5 brothers. All 4 of his other brothers were killed in action during the same war in World War II. Because he was the sole surviving brother, an army platoon was ordered to find Ryan and get him back home safely. In the process, most of the platoon was killed, and as the sergeant lay there before he died, he whispered to Private Ryan to earn this, meaning earn this life or chance you've been given to make it worth it. Today we have the chance and obligation to earn this by seizing every opportunity we can to help others. Although we did not sacrifice our lives on 9/11, we can sacrifice time and assistance to make this country what it can be. There are no shortages of people in need. What a country it would be if all 300 million Americans served each other. Today we pay tribute to those who perished on that terrible day, but I'm grateful for their sacrifices and realize their ultimate contribution was not in vain. We will never forget that day, but I also will never forget the teamwork, the rebuilding, and the helping of others, which began on that same day at Ground Zero. Today our country faces many challenges, and we must still defend her today and remember we are united, not divided. I appreciate what we have and fight for it. You don't need to be a firefighter, a police officer, a nurse, or any first responder to be grateful for this country and for which it stands for. But our liberties are being tested daily, and it is up to us to carry on that torch of freedom to the next generation. What will be your legacy? If you think you have nothing to offer, think again. Your legacy is every life you've touched to make a difference. All we have to do is be kind and help those in need on a daily basis, whether it's helping a veteran with a disability, a family in need, or just practicing kindness. And remember, what you put out will always come back to you. I'm saddened by the loss of so many Americans throughout the years, not just in 2001. I am grateful and optimistic that we will triumph at the end of each hardship through the determination and capability of the hardworking men and women of this great country. So when you're asked to never forget, remember our fight is not over, and to say a prayer for those who lost remember our fight is not over, and to say a prayer for those we lost, and practice kindness and forgiveness daily in their honor. Thank you.
Next, we have our very own Hawthorne Police Chief, Gary Tomatani. And thank you, Gary, for helping put this event together, and your staff, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start my comments this morning with a little bit of a thank you to the City of Hawthorne's Public Works Department and Community Services Department. If you had a chance to look around, you'll notice some markings on the street here in front of City Hall and some markings for our parking stalls here to my left. And that's all as a result of their hard work and efforts and in anticipation of today's remembrance for 9/11. And there are also some banners that are hanging from the street or the light poles behind you that represent each branch of the armed forces, and that's also a part of their efforts. So I'm very grateful for what those two departments have done, so thank you very much. It's hard to believe that it's been 22 years since the tragedy of what we now commonly refer to as 9/11. For those of us old enough to remember, 9/11 was one of those indelible events where you remember exactly where you were and what you were doing when you first heard the news. Personally, I was already a police officer with the City of Hawthorne, and my roommate at the time happened to be a police officer, still is employed there with the LA Airport Police. He was asleep. I was awake getting ready for work that Tuesday morning, and I saw the replay footage of the first plane hitting one of the World Trade Center towers. I immediately woke my roommate up, and within 20 minutes his cell phone rang, and I don't think I saw him for another 2 weeks. Needless to say, being an airport police officer at that time, his life kind of got turned upside down for a while, and he was pretty busy. In the 22 years since 9/11, it's become convenient to not give as much thought to that fateful date and what came of it. This is part of the healing process, I suppose. To dwell on things that we don't really have very much control over as individuals is probably not a healthy thing to do. But to forget what came of that day would be a disservice to those who lost their lives or lost loved ones. So what did come from that day? Sacrifice. FDNY. LA County Fire, one of these days I'm going to ask why their initials are backwards. No one else does that. FDNY, New York PD, the Port Authority Police Department, service members and civilian staff at the Pentagon, the crew and passengers of United Flight 93, regular, everyday people at the World Trade Center who chose to stay behind to try to help evacuate fellow employees in those two buildings before they collapsed. There certainly was no shortage of heroism displayed by Americans on that day. My list is police department centric here, and I apologize because I know I'm short on a couple of names, and I know that there are representatives that are not affiliated with the city or from other city departments that I just don't have the personal knowledge to acknowledge here today. Hawthorne police officers Jack Cunningham, John Scovald, and Sergeant Jose Saldana, that was recently mentioned by Commissioner Johnson, all deployed overseas either directly or in support of the global war on terror in the days, month, and years following 9/11. Former Hawthorne police officers Chris Merkel and Jeff Rand did so as well. Sacrifice. On September 11, 2001, Edviges Preciado, or Doovie as she was known to the police department, was a teenage explorer with the Hawthorne Police Explorer Post. Upon aging out of the Explorer program, she was still too young to immediately pursue her dreams of becoming a Hawthorne police officer. While she was a high school student, she also excelled in the ROTC program. So upon graduation from high school and driven by a desire to serve, she enlisted in the U.S. Army. There she met her future husband, Josh Wolf, also a U.S. Army soldier. They got married and began their family with 2 young daughters. In October of 2009, while a part of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, a convoy that Doovie was providing security for came under small arms fire and rocket-propelled grenade attack. Doovie was wounded and she did not survive. She was 24 years old. When we think back on 9/11, it's our hope that we as a people never forget what came of that day, sacrifice of our best. In the worst of cases, death or injury. In the best of cases, precious time away from loved ones, families and friends. Missed anniversaries, birth dates, and holidays. Even today, 22 years removed from 9/11, people who weren't even alive at the time are serving in a myriad of capacities to keep all of us safe. And we should be grateful that those people exist. Commissioner Johnson, thank you for the story on the boat lift of 9/11. I'm actually a little bit ashamed of myself that I've never heard of that until today. There was a little bit of a better publicized story that shows some of the good that came out of 9/11. So unity. The town of Gander in Newfoundland, Canada, is yet another example of people at their best. In an often forgotten saga of that tragic day, the town of Gander took in about 7,000 passengers and crew who were in the air when U.S. airspace was abruptly shut down. These planes needed to land somewhere, and many of them were diverted to the international airport near Gander. This town had a population of about 12,000, and they took in 7,000 additional people. By all accounts, everything was done to make the passengers and crew of the diverted flights feel as welcome as they could humanly be made to feel possible, and as if they'd reached their intended destinations without problems. What came of that day? Gratitude. On a daily basis, I'm lucky enough to have a front row seat where I witness the dedication of our city staff, county firefighters, to make Hawthorne a better place. If you could see the view from my perspective, I think it would be a lot easier for all of you to be able to drown out the noise. It would be a lot easier to have a more positive outlook. It would be a lot easier to have faith in our own future. Today, as we settle back into our routines, I hope that we can all be grateful for what we have, work positively for what we want to achieve, and do it all on a level that compares with the days, weeks, months, and years that followed 9/11. It shouldn't take another tragedy for each of us to focus on what is important. Thank you very much.
If I can ask everyone to join us for a brief moment of silence to remember those that lost their lives during 9/11. If you can bow your heads and just think of unity, think of how we have moved forward as a nation, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to ask the Hawthorne Police Department Honor Guard to approach to raise the flag back to full staff. Thank you.
If willing and able, please stand. Uniform personnel, you will salute on my command. Non-uniform personnel, right hand over your heart on my command. Uniform personnel, present arms. Order, arms.
Can we face the flag and place your hands over your heart? Let's state the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Please be seated. At this time, this concludes our remembrance ceremony. I'd like to thank all our service providers, all our public safety, all our staff, elected officials, commissioners, constituents, residents for coming out and spending time with us today. I would just ask, as we sit and think about what happened 22 years ago, that you share your memories with a coworker, with a friend, or someone you don't know. I think this is how we keep the legacy of those that lost their lives and gave their lives to protect those that were in danger that day. And thank you for coming out. We also have refreshments in the lobby. Please partake in that. And once again, thank you for joining us today for our 9/11 remembrance. Thank you.